Hey everybody, I hope you are doing well. I am Afefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond. I was sitting here actually doing a personal reading, and then I had to go get my lip gloss on. Spirit said, you're going to tape this one, Afefe. Thinking about processing, what we all knew was going to happen Super Tuesday. No big surprises there. I'm taping this on Wednesday morning. Pretty strong indications that Nikki Haley is going to drop out, but there are also some other indications. I've been listening to some people here that online that I really admire, some psychics, and so there's some predictions about what might happen if it winds up. Might not be over for her just yet, depending on how things roll out with Trump in the months to come in terms of his health, his stability, etc. So we'll see how that plays out. But this reading today, I personally was thinking about how I want to move forward as a citizen, as a spiritualist, as a family member, as a friend, etc. How I want to be as an American in this time. And I thought a lot about how much angst we are all going through right now. I can't tell you how many readings I do for people, how many comments I see. It's a beautiful thing that's happening on this platform and other social media platforms, politically, socio-politically, where we are building community. We're all across the globe. I had someone from Ireland make a comment on one of my posts the other day, and really I was thrilled about that. So we know that this is a global community, despite all of the isolationism that we see certain, factions wanting to promote. But there's a lot of angst. There's a lot of anxiousness. There's a lot of people who are losing sleep, who are losing hope, who are feeling desperate. I have also done a lot of readings for many of you who are feeling great tensions within your families because depending on what sections of the country you live in America, you may have certain, democratic leanings, and you are surrounded by MAGA members or MAGA leaning people, and that's discomforting. These are the people who you should be feel comfortable around. Know that you are loved, know that you are safe, know that this is your tribe, and it's anything but. Okay, so we have this growing sense of angst, and we are only in March, and it's not even like November is a goalpost, because we know that no matter what happens in November, the beat goes on. There are going to be people who are like, woohoo, hooray, we made it, with Biden pulls it through, and there's going to be that sigh of relief. On the other hand, we've got this whole millions of people, this contingent out here who are going to be pissed, right? And so what happens? How do we bring the temperature down? My point is there's a lot of angst. There's a lot of reason for that angst. It is real. At the same time, Spirit was reminding me this morning, and I that's why I got on here. Let's think about, political angst versus political power. There have been times in our history, I'm a 60s baby, and so talking, all of the civil rights movement, all of the protests, all of the political upheaval, thinking about the Kennedys. I woke up really strongly thinking about John and Robert today for some reason, because they too, as a political dynasty, it's not like you could say, the Kennedys and squeaky clean in the same sentence, right? Like, we weren't doing that. At the same time, there was a human quality to what was happening at that time, even among people who differed drastically, the rich or the poor, white or black or Asian or whatever your station in life, whatever your ethnic background. When it came to human rights, when it came to people's ability to feel free, to enjoy certain liberties that were designed in the Constitution, there was this common ground. We experienced some of that when Barack Obama ran initially, especially initially the first time, and it was this explosion of whoa, remember the whole yes we can thing. It was this unique ability to focus on our commonalities over and above our differences. But my point with that, and I think why the spirit guides were taking me down memory lane that way this morning, is because that is a source of political power. And it's going to be increasingly, important for us to identify our politics, not just in terms of a party affiliation, but in terms of our own unique core beliefs. Keeping in mind as well that while many of us are talking about, get out to vote, it's going to be Taylor Swift, my girl. Taylor Swift got on there with her 272 million followers and said, vote. She didn't name names. She didn't go all in and say who for, but we had a pretty good understanding of what that meant and who that meant, right? So we know that voting is important. We also know, going back to 2016, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of what happened, didn't Hillary Clinton win by the popular vote? But it was the electoral college that got us, that started us down this slippery slide. All right. So it's not just simply about the vote, but it is about the vote where. It is about the electoral college. And granted, none of us, believes that that's going to change anytime soon. Certainly not any reforms in time to ensure the right thing happens. So therefore, what do we do? Are we going to continue to just, wrap ourselves up in this ball of anxiety, continue to talk to one another, throw our little jabs at Trump? Feels fun. I could do it all day with you, right? Because it is true, so much of it is true, and it keeps us, we need those moments of laughter, of lightening one another up, being able to lighten the mood, and do it through comedy and laughter and a sense of camaraderie. I get that, but we also have a whole lot of business at hand to attend to, and to that extent, I think that it is important for us to keep in mind where we are and how we can continue to unite to build our own unique sense of political power, and thereby that relates to the spiritual power, that because so much of what was being done, certainly in the old, back in the 60s and onward, it was from a place of spiritual conviction. Many people, especially within the African American tradition, as you all know, it grew out of the church. It grew out of this sense of moral sensibilities of what is right or wrong. So there is this connection between the spiritual and the political, I think, in terms of our claiming our power and being able to exercise our power, our political power. All right. That, I think, translates to something even more than the vote. The vote may be the nuts and bolts of it. Like, bottom line, we got to get to, cast that ballot and cast that vote. But also we have to be able to stand with one another and continue to build community, continue to have dialogue with one another, continue to tap into our collective power as humans sharing this planet. Having said that, I did pull some cards that I wanted to share with you all. Central to what Spirit, the guides, gave me this morning in terms of choosing political power over political angst at this time and in the months to come, I got the first card that came was the Seven of Fire. In this deck, the Seven of Fire is the Seven of Wands. Notice that beautiful lion with the roses sprouting all around him. The Seven of Wands is that card of, many call it the stand your ground card. It is a card of understanding what your personal convictions are and not allowing yourself to be swayed. That some of this political angst, I think, is because we feel attacked. To be, the LGBTQ community, trans community, non-binary community, ethnic communities across Palestinians, Muslims, Black, Latinos, Hispanics, the latest comments that apparently Trump made. Now, not only are people crossing the border rapists, but now they're absolutely quote unquote insane. I mean, the rhetoric is beyond. So this Seven of Wands stands up to say, find your courage to not just bark back at it, which I think the media, I'm a former journalist. If I didn't say that earlier, and many of you know me, if you've been with me, you know that by now. Newspaper journalists used to do tons of politics, endorsements, etc. But there comes a time where you have to understand that despite the groundswell of point counterpoint, who are you? And what are you bringing to the equation? That's very much the Seven of Wands energy. So it's incumbent upon us all. Find your center. What is your take, your stance? We are all busy consuming the news around us and keeping, our head has to stay on the swivel for what the next events are, right? And we got to do that. We need to stay informed, but also bring it back to center. Who are you? So they brought me the Seven of Wands, and then they brought me the World. In this deck, they call it the Council of All Beings. But that's the World card. You see that 21 on there. And notice everybody, every kind of, creature in that boat all together, and with the whale underneath it, right? This is it. In terms of socio-political, spiritual, recognizing that we all share this earth. We all share this time in space. We all share this moment or these moments in history. And so there needs to be this mutual respect for all manner of life, for all cultures, for all beliefs even. I'm not mad at the people in the MAGA movement so much as I am disappointed in them, that they could be so sucked into something that does not win for anybody, including them. Do you really think that Donald Trump is going to rise from the ashes? And if he were to win, spit after I say that, but so now he's going to turn back and go, hey, let me go hook up my people who took care of me. Supreme Court men. Did you notice how that decision came down? The dissenters in even, what's her name? Dang, the woman. These 60s, y'all. But I know it was the 4 women who came out. The 3 liberal women came out and said, you know what, this was crazy. The ballot decision came out and said, this was crazy. It wasn't right, but hey, it is what it is. And then we had the 4th woman, most recently appointed by Trump. That's bugging me. You'll tell me, or it'll come to me in a moment. But even she poo-pooed them to a certain extent and said, well, the liberals didn't have to go as far as they did, but these 5 guys on the other side went way too far. Like, they brought up questions that weren't really even a part of the argument, all to turn around and say, no, states can't decide these kinds of insurrectionist issues. It has to go back to Congress. Congress, who can't even tie its own shoes right now, right? Okay. Back to the world. We are all together as one. I pulled a few more messages that come from stand your ground, know who you are. You are in the midst of the collective, in the midst of the greater whole, in the midst of humanity. Thinking about Gaza, thinking about Ukraine, thinking about all of it, right? Because all of it. We impact and affect one another through trade, through our cultural exchanges, through our families, etc. Keep going. So, a couple of things they gave me. They said, number 1, we have to be able to, where is it? I just had it here in front of me. Flight is what they gave me. And it says there, letting go, ease, and what's the third one? Forgiveness. There's on a certain level, I think what the guides are saying here, you all, in that flight is moving on, recognizing that even astrologically, we have been told, Pluto in Aquarius, so many other transits happening. We've been given hints that that there were these major shifts that are happening, that just as when Pluto was in a Capricorn, we had all these governmental issues coming up. We had so much dissension, so much unraveling take place within our structures, within our governmental structures. And now Pluto in Aquarius having to do with that larger whole. So now this letting go, is, I think Spirit is saying, we don't have a choice except to let go of the old ways. The GOP, for instance, done for. However they decide to rebuild, reconfigure, redescribe, fine. But the McCain or Nixon even GOP, it's gone. It's history. It ain't happening no more. So I think that's the flight that Spirit is talking about, is letting go of and being willing, but in a light-mannered way, not in a tight angst way, but from or anxious way, but from a space of power to say, you know what? I recognize that this is no longer 1920 or 1950, 60, 70, 80. This is 2024, and it is a different time. It's time for us to let go of some things. This was crossed with what they call in this deck the shaman, but number 13, death, confirmation. The end of the ways that things used to be, and to be able to have an ease, a sense of ease. And this is where the spiritual meets the political, you all, because in order to have that sense of ease, we have to believe that things will ultimately work out for our better good, the betterment of us all. We have to understand that what is happening is not meant to destroy us or take us down or make us actually hate one another or do harm to one another, but that it is an end of a way of being that was necessary somehow, some way. I think, as often is the case, it'll be in hindsight that we really understand it better. But this flight is letting go, because what was simply cannot be any longer. We don't need to resist that. It won't do us any good if we do resist that. We have to find a way to move on. How do we move on? They gave me dance. And it says spontaneity, movement, and freedom. Pluto in Aquarius, you all, among other things that are happening right now. But thinking about that freedom, the idea is, with Aquarius, it is that live and let live, that sort of larger world view, that larger, each person to his own, like, as long as, it's like peace, love, and happiness, do you. It's a strong sense of individuality with Aquarius and Uranus, but it's also individuality within the collective. I can be me, you can be you. You may be white, Chinese, or Asian, I should say, or whatever. I'm African American. I'm of mixed race. Okay, so but either way, if either one of us pricked our fingers right now, that blood is going to come out red. That's what I think Spirit is talking about here. There's a certain freedom that can happen if we begin to truly get back to the basics of what we deserve as a people. The dance of freedom, of movement, and being spontaneous. And when I cross this with tarot, I got the High Priestess. They call it initiation in this deck, but it's the High Priestess. But I love that word initiation. Of course I would. But check it out. I think in the context of this dance card, where it says this movement and freedom and spontaneity, this is an initiation. It is accepting the fact that things have ended. The old way of being has ended. This is, and so too, perhaps while we so readily can claim the old GOP is no more, perhaps the Democratic Party is about to undergo some changes as well. Not so much in terms of its ideology, but certainly in terms of its ability to amass people to understand that it has not changed in its willingness, in its policies, in its ideology towards a greater whole, a greater collective, a society that has equanimity and pushes for fairness for all. because there's so much energy being put out toward this point, counterpoint, everything that Trump and the MAGA movement does, and then it wraps up everything in our media, in our political leadership, Biden on down, to then have to constantly push back against that versus being able to promote and put forward new ideas, new ideology, fresh policies that can be enacted. Now, I do understand that Biden's got some tricks up his sleeve that he's going to put into motion, and maybe we'll hear more about that tomorrow during the State of the Union address. Cannot wait. But back to here. So this is an initiation that we're undergoing, you all. And initiation is basically a state of going from one set of rules or beings or understandings about yourself to another. It is where you open yourself up to a greater understanding. It is enlightenment. It is change, but it is change that is meant not only to give you a different experience, but to give you a different perspective and motivation and knowledge about the greater scheme of your life and the role that you play in it. That is really what initiation can do for you, because once you undergo any type of initiation and have your consciousness awakened, you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unknow what you've known. And that's the power and the beauty of initiation, going from political anxiety to political power. All right, in a spiritual vein. Got it. And the last thing that Spirit gave me was a hummingbird spirit. And it says alignment, optimism, and joy. Ooh, I was glad to see that as the final card here, right? The hummingbird spirit. Interestingly, it comes with, when I went to tarot, 2 cards stuck together. And it was the sun, which I was delighted to see. And then in this card, they call it journey, which is the devil, 15. Now, the sun and the devil. Interesting. I think this is, but perfect, as the guides always are. This is, to me, would love to hear your feedback as well, how it strikes you. But to me, this is saying, in order to get on with life, because the sun is life-giving, the sun is joy, it is playfulness, it is creativity, it's ruled by Leo. It is the sun. Like, how do we live without the sun? The warmth of the sun, the joy of the sun, dancing in the sun, even all the beauty in this card, the bird flying overhead, the flowers blooming. Like, the sun is life-giving. Are those bees in the background? Butterflies in the background. So that transformation, and that's a heart. I thought it was a flower. That's a heart in the center of that. All right. The beating heart, life, the sun being life-giving, while the devil steals life. The devil seduces and tempts and makes things look a certain way, makes it look life-giving when it really isn't. Okay, so when we're looking at this hummingbird spirit that says this alignment, let's focus on that word, alignment. Aligning ourselves with what is truly life-giving versus what may appear to be so. What may appear to be, what seduces us. This notion of power, this notion of gotcha, that whole gotcha politics, gotcha movement, gotcha even in what can be our own, within our family units, the who's right and who's wrong, and the need to feel like to feel validated and that our point was the one that was really, really it won the day. So that's what I think Spirit is leaving us with, is we have to be able to discern what seems to be maybe attractive, what seems to be maybe a point of power, but is actually causing the political angst. It's causing us to be out of alignment, going back to that hummingbird spirit with that alignment and joy. Is our ability to counter the negativity that we see in our social fabric and especially our political fabric, and how the two fit together, and then go into our spiritual fabric, is our ability to rise above that. Is it coming from our ego? Is it coming from our need to be right? Is it coming from our need to just see Trump thrown under the bottom of a jail into a dungeon? Does that even solve the momentum that he's built among people? Does that really change the hearts and minds of all those people we saw at the Capitol on January 6th, right? What does that do? So I think Spirit's message today, you all, was more about political angst versus political power, and us being in a position to really start to redefine what we mean by political power, how we can claim it, how we can operate in it. And I think that it comes from a spiritual place, from a fundamental belief in how we see ourselves in comparison to how we see the rest of humanity, and letting that then trickle into our relationships with our families, our relationships with one another on this platform. I welcome all viewpoints and opinions as long as they are respectful. That is my only requirement. None of this fight, jab, tit for tat in the comments. I will delete it. But if it is respectful, if it is in search of understanding, that is what our old system of politics used to be, right? McCain had Democratic. McCain and Joe Biden were cool. They were totally cool, and it was really about respect. How do we get back to that? Because that, I think, it may not make the angst disappear. We can't stick our heads in the sand. We better not, and pretend that all this isn't happening. But we do have to find some really good, better mechanisms to deal with it, so that it doesn't impact our health, our sleep, our relationships, etc. All right. Enough said. I don't want to be preachy, but I did want to share that with you all. Would love to hear your feedback. I wish you the absolute best. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.